Let's see where we left our game the previous time. There was this scary enemy and the little player that can step on the bottom of the playing field. He can also jump on top of the playing field, which is one of the tasks in the homework. I hope it was the easiest for you. And let's see how we can fix it. I go to game.js of our previous game, the Jetpack Joyride. And here I can see if that checks if the bottom part of the player, the bottom part of course is 30 pixels down from the top of the player. So is the bottom part of the player under the bottom part of the playing field? Because if it is, let's put the top part of the player 30 pixels over the bottom of the playing field. 30 pixels is the size of the player, it's Y size. This line of code is a little bit different than this check here. I had to move the plus 30 on the other side. When I make the if checking if I'm on top of the playing field, it will be easier for me because I don't need any additions or other mathematic formulas to find my top part, because my top part is exactly the value stored in my y. I can just write if comparing my y and the top of the playing field, which is at y0. So I need to check if the player is even higher than the top part of the playing field. So this will happen if my y is even less than 0. You might be surprised that there are numbers smaller than 0 if you are a small kid, but I'm pretty sure that you've seen the temperatures in the winter and know that sometimes they become less than 0. So there are really numbers smaller than 0. We can see that the computer already works with such numbers because you can see what happens when the player is on top of the playing field. Now I will prevent him from going over the playing field. I'm going to write if my y is less than 0. Let's just stop it at 0. So now my game will behave in this way. I don't know if this is most funny. You can have your own opinion, but this was what was the task at 1A. Sorry, in only 1. Let's make 1A. Well, this is going to be a really easy task because we just have to write console game over instead of this line my y equals 0. So console log game over. Don't prevent me from going over the playing field, but at least I can see that I deserved to be punished for my bad behavior going so much on top. Let's see the other tasks for the player going too far up over the playing field. If the player tries to go over the playing field, teleport him to the bottom. Well, how to understand which Y means the player is on bottom? Maybe this is 600, my Y equals 600. I'm not sure that you can see there is something strange happening. There is just a little moment that I'm outside of the playing field, under the playing field. This is really strange, and it could be seen much better if I hide this previous if. Let's see how the game behaves now. Where am I? I am under the playing field and I was teleported under the playing field. That's because 600 is the bottom part of the playing field, but I put there the top part of the player. So if the top part of the player is exactly on the edge of the bottom part of the playing field, so all of the player will be invisible. Perhaps I should put a different number here instead of 600, or maybe some formula that will make the player fit in the playing field. Such a formula could be my Y plus 30, this is the bottom part of the player, to be on Y 600. I hope you remember that such if cannot work, because in the left of the equal sign could be only one variable. I had this problem, so the solution is moving plus 30 to the other side, and it becomes with a minus sign. Let's see what's going on now. If I jump over the playing field, you can see that the place that I'm teleported to is inside the playing field totally. I hope you like this. I'm going to put back both ifs, and now the combination will be the best. I can even do one more thing. I can do that if the player is on the bottom, let's teleport him to the top. So I'm not sure if this is going to be okay and understandable. Perhaps it looks okay, maybe. You like it? Well, it's not in our homework, so let's find another task to do now. I will not make a second enemy because this is a simple copy-paste task. I hope you made a new variables for him. I will make the variable speed from task 2. Actually, I've made it in the previous lesson. I'm going to use it now. So I will need this variable to change, and I can make it change. I can make it change on each mouse up. For example, enemy speed becomes 5, Let's see if this is fun. You can see that my enemy is still slow, like in the beginning. But what if I click? Well, this really changed his speed. Is there another place where I should change his speed so that each resurrected enemy, each enemy teleported to the right of the screen is faster and faster? Perhaps I have a place in my code where I resurrect the enemies. Do you see such a place in my code? Well, here it is. If the enemy is reached the left part of the screen, put him on the right part of the screen and perhaps increase his speed. Let's see if this line of code is good. Now my first enemy is slow. Woohoo! See how fast the second enemy is. Sadly, each next enemy is the same speed. Well, that's exactly what I have written. I've written enemy speed to become 5. And this will always change the speed to 5. This will not increase the speed with each next resurrection of the enemy. Is there another line of code that we already learned that will increase enemy speed? Of course, we did enemy speed +1 is evaluation that will get the next number after enemy speed. And let's see what is going on now. Again, we start with a slow enemy. Is it a little bit faster now? Perhaps now a little bit faster and faster and faster. Oh, this is scary. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play this game with so fast enemies. I hope you like this, but actually I still can play really easily this game because my enemies are always on the same Y, and this is a little bit boring. I hope you've seen your task 5 and think about something in it. This is the task that I'm going to comment soon. But first I will make interesting change to my code that many students do. They place this line of code outside of any ifs. I wonder what is going to happen now. Let's see. What is going on now? You can see that in the beginning the player is kind of slow, but pretty soon his speed becomes really crazy, and now for some reason he blinks and now there is no enemy. What is going on? Well, actually my enemy now is moving with around 400 pixels per update, now with 700 pixels per update, and now his speed is so big that in one update he travels through all the playing field and immediately disappears, so we are not able to see it at all. I can write enemy Y in the console to see where the enemy is. Sorry, enemy X is the variable that I need. So enemy X is stuck at the right part of the playing field, because if he moves just once he should go from 800 to some number that is 800 minus 4513. So this number is much negative, and such an enemy will be totally out of the playing field. So I think you don't need this line of code outside of any ifs. This line of code should be in the if, checking if the enemy is reached the left part of the playing field. There is one more line of code that I want to write here in order for the enemy to have different y each time. I showed you that my game is boring even with fast enemies because the enemy is always on the same y. This can change pretty dramatically if I write the line enemy y equals 100. Let's see my change now. Slow enemy on y 300, faster enemy on y 100. Well, he's stuck on y 100. This is a pretty stupid change for enemy y. Perhaps if I can think of a formula that will give me even stranger values, for example, a formula that increases the result each time, this would be kind of better. Well, I actually know such a formula. I can write enemy y equals enemy y plus 1, and there will be change now, but it is going to be pretty small. I don't think you see any change. You will see it when the enemies become faster. Perhaps you will soon realize that they are going down. You can see that now my mouse is outside of the enemy because he is slowly going down. Not so slowly, with each teleportation he's going 1 pixel down. Well, my game is totally not playable now because of the enemy speed, so the Y of the enemy is not the problem now. I think the change in enemy Y should be bigger, so I will write 10 here. And let's see if there is a much visible change now. Yeah, I like this. But still I can stay on the same place in the top of the playing field. And I will be protected from enemies. Boring game, boring game. What if in the beginning the player is on the top of the playing field and now its Y changes? Well, is this better? Well, little bit. Now I have to be in the bottom of the playing field and in some moment try to jump over the enemy if I'm not smart enough to know that the world is a circle and I can teleport from the one part of it to the other. We can keep this formula now, or we can add one more if here. This could be the first task of your next homework. Add one if that will prevent this from happening. You can see that my enemy has resurrected, teleported a lot, and his speed was increasing and his Y was changing, but now enemy Y has changed so much that it is 33 1000. Well, I can't be hit by an enemy so far away. So you can add an if that checks if the enemy Y is too big after the last resurrection and moves him to some other place much up. You can try to do this task even now, or perhaps if you want it can be the first task of your homework. And now I'm going to stop talking about Jetpack Joyride and we will have a totally new game to make.